Welcome to the Trading Bell. I'm Malika Kazia, and today, once again, I have the opportunity to sit down with a managing director from a company that has joined the Ibuka Acceleration and Incubation Program. This time around, I'm talking to the managing director for Polygon Logistics Limited, which has been around for close to a decade now, and that is Ben Omolo. But before we get right into this conversation, take a look at his profile.
Ben Omolo is the founder and managing director of Polygon Logistics since 2010, with a top 100 SME position second award in the 7th year. Omolo has previously worked as the managing director at SkyTrain Limited with a workforce of up to 120 members and as operations manager and exports manager for Homegrown. He has also served as the operations officer and customer service at Air France.
Ben, thank you so much for making time for us and joining us on the Trading Bell today.
Thank you to Malika.
All right, let's just begin by, you telling us a little bit about Polygon Logistics and what it is that you aim to do.
Polygon Logistics is a family business. As you mentioned earlier, it was started almost a decade ago. And how it came about to be was based on my historical background, working with Air France for 7 years, working for Homegrown for another 15 years, which was 22 years based at JKA. I developed a liking in what I was doing when I was employed, just generally organizing, at the peak of my career, organizing freight logistics for Homegrown in terms of imports, exports. And I developed a very good experience, which culminated in myself running one of the sister companies of Homegrown called SkyTrain, which was a clearing and forwarding outfit, dealing in freight logistics, especially cargo charter flights to Europe. So with that, I developed a passion in logistics. So when the business was, when Homegrown was bought by Finlays and they asked me to step aside, I opted to go and start my own business based on what I knew best, which was logistics, and that's how Polygon Logistics came to be.
So you focus mainly on a lot of imports, exports, and the likes. How are you seeing the trajectory of the business having developed throughout the decade?
The trajectory of the business developing has been very, very tremendous. Reason being, we are good at what we are best at what we do generally, and the other main thing that we do is we do everything above board. And with the current scenario whereby the government is trying to streamline a lot of issues that we've had with contrabands and with people taking shortcuts in the clearing business, I think we're in the right place. And the next thing that we'll just see is tremendous growth based on the new developments that the government is implementing.
Okay, actually speaking about what the government is focusing on, just recently we had President Uhuru Kenyatta stress that, the containers that have been held at the depot need to be cleared in the next 3 weeks. So were you affected with the holding of the containers that had been going on, maybe even over 1,000 estimates have said?
For Polygon, we were not affected at all. What we've been affected with is occasionally some bureaucratic delays. But because we handle clients who are above board, who do things legitimately and straightforward, we've not had an issue with the containers being held, just slight delays.
Okay.
On the containers that the president had to intervene, we were not party to any of those. Yes.
So how do you see now that you've joined the Ibuka program, what are some of your plans going forward to expand and to grow even further?
I'll just give you a little bit of a background, the reason how we came into Ibuka. Sitting in my office, I was used to doing the day in, day out routine work. But as a managing director of the business, I need to focus on a lot of things that will take the business forward. So sitting on my desk, one day I thought that we need to have visibility and to have accountability by getting people coming in to invest in the business. So we started off with GEMS, which didn't work. And GEMS was the growth enterprise market segment, which the Nairobi Stock Exchange decided to change the focus and came up with a Ibuka program, which to me is looks like it's going to be a game changer. And so far, whatever we're already doing on Ibuka with the NSE is coming out, and I can attest to that based on this interview that we are carrying out today. And Ibuka is going to come up with a lot of statutory requirements, with the standards, and Polygon is ready to get on board Ibuka so that the business can grow, and also for succession planning.
Amazing. So specifically, you were telling me a little bit earlier on that it's a family business.
Yes.
And one of the major things you aim to do through Ibuka is create more of a semblance in the organizational structure. So in that regard, what exactly are you planning to do?
My plan is as follows. Our business is heavily cash oriented. You have to get your cash flows right. So for Polygon to get their cash flows right, we need to have investors coming in, and investors will not come in a business that is totally close to the family, because it has got to be visible. It's got to be seen what they are doing, and that visibility will enable us to have investors coming in. We'll have to have the structures in place to make sure that we can generate more business by getting investors coming in, giving us the correct cash flows that we need to run the business. Yes.
Okay. And, when we talk about where you see Polygon in the next 2-3 years, even 5 years, what are some of your ambitions?
My ambitions are to see the business grow from being a top 100 SME to the top 100 has got another program that's called the Club 101. So Club 101 gets your revenues from 70 to 999 million to $1 billion.
Wow.
Yes.
So amazing, really great.
Yes.
And I'm sure this is going to spur you in the right direction, of course, with the program. Now, when it comes to having investors on board and things like that, do you yourself personally invest in companies listed on the NSE?
I've not had the opportunity to invest in companies listed in the NSE. Reason being, Polygon managed to get the financial backing from my initial savings, which I did with insurances and all. So I needed the revenues to keep the business running. And for me personally, to invest in the NSE was very difficult because I was using most of the money in putting Polygon into position. And as I mentioned earlier, the cash flows are very, very key in running the business. So what I'm looking at is, as soon as we'll get investors and those ideas which can come on the board, and we see what we can do with the funds.
Amazing. So, you've set up your SME, you're well on your way to even expanding it, growing it to great heights. And a lot of youth in the country who decide that they also want to get into business, they want to have their own, and they want to be their own boss. So I like to ask this of most of our Ibuka leaders who come on board for the trading bell, that, if you had to give 3 key pieces of advice to the youth who want to have their own business, what would it be?
My pieces of advice, the first piece of advice will be experience. They need to go out there, get employed, they get the experience. Secondly, they will need a lot of patience. And thirdly, they will need generally discipline, but more so financial discipline.
So what do you think are some of the greatest sources of capital that they can find currently in this economy that we have?
The greatest source of capital will just be bank finances.
Okay, so you believe that's a good way to go for them?
That's a good way to go.
Okay, and finally, just as we close up, any of your final thoughts on what's happening in terms of Ibuka and how your experience has been so far?
Ibuka generally is a fantastic idea. And during one of the interviews that I did with the staff of the NSE, I told them that I will be ready to run with them on Ibuka. I know it's a new program for them, and they will need a lot of support from the companies that have joined Ibuka to take it forward. Otherwise, they cannot do it alone. So I told them if they need me 4 in the morning, need me at 11 in the night, I will be available to take Ibuka forward.
Amazing.
Yes.
All right. Thank you so much for speaking to us today.
No problem.
Well, that was Ben Omolo, the Managing Director for Polygon Logistics Limited, talking all about joining the Ibuka program today on the Trading Bell.